Hey everyone, this is Disc Junkie and welcome back to Secondhand Sickness. And so back to the carboot sale. It's actually the final weekend for the season. The weather was, forecasted to be terrible, but it's actually clearing up. I actually got some sun today, so pretty packed, and I'm just a little bit sad and a little bit stoked to check out the last carboot sale of the season. So let's go ahead and check it out. Okay, so I'm back home, back at the table, and we're gonna check out the finds of the day. Now, I will say that I actually only found like one item, or well, 4 items from the same seller this time. The general turn-up was not the best. It looked kind of packed when I got there, but I guess I was sort of expecting less people on account of the weather forecast. But I did score some stuff, and it was actually kind of fun because the only things I did actually find were things which one of my sort of common sellers had actually put on layaway for me. But it was not something I was expecting, so I was sort of giving up. I was walking around towards some of the last tables, and he just sort of, pointed at me being like, dude, I got something for you. And he went into his truck and actually came back with this small stack of vintage magazines. So these are 1960s erotica from a brand or a label which is called Cavalcade. It's pretty common. I wouldn't say that they are super collectible or anything. These are also quite worn on the spines, almost coming apart. But there's essentially 4 issues, so I thought we would just take a brief look at them. And he pretty much wanted 20 Swedish crowns for this entire bundle, which is about €2. And I mean, I don't know, if these had been in better shape, like if the spines were better, you could probably get a lot more for them. Even, for these 4, I think 20 Swedish crowns is definitely a good deal. And it's not generally a sort of magazine that I collect. I mean, if I find them for cheap, I'll definitely pick them up. But yeah, I mean, 20 Swedish crowns, I'm not going to pass that up. It is actually quite a good deal for the price that you wanted. So that was actually the only pickup of today in terms of what I actually found at the carboot sale. But I know this isn't too much, so we are actually going to throw in some bonus items for this video. And this is stuff that I've essentially found online recently, and it's going to be sort of in the same category as these items, so that's why I wanted to include them in this video. And first up, we can actually look at a couple of different adult magazines. Now, these will essentially be uncensored, so I'm gonna have to censor them in post. And by that standard, I'm just gonna make things easy and actually show you a slideshow. So here goes. First up is a couple of issues of a magazine which is called Sex i Bild, or Sex in Focus, or Sex in Image, depending on how I want to translate it. And this is a vintage magazine from Hson, who is a publicist that I tend to collect. And after that, sort of on the same topic, we got an issue of a magazine which is called Bazaar. And this is a magazine which I found on Swedish eBay, much the same like the previous magazines. And this is a magazine which, even though I've collected Hson stuff for quite a few years, I have never seen this magazine. This is actually number 17, so I know that there were several copies of this issued. And it's apparently a Danish production, but it's been sort of published in Sweden by Hson. And this was also a find from Swedish eBay. I think I paid something like €20 maybe, thereabouts. Next up, we're gonna look at a book which doesn't have anything to do with Kurt Hson, but I did find this really interesting. And it's a book known as Make Love. And then in the description it says a colorful sexual enjoyment with over 200 photos. And this is essentially a book which is, you know, sort of marketed as a sexual education type book, but in terms of the actual contents, it's pretty much porn. You know, it's just a very lengthy illustration of various photos and various sexual positions with some text added. So I don't know, it feels like it's essentially porn, but they're trying to market it as something else. And never actually seen this book before, found it on a Swedish sort of online book marketplace, and I think I scored it for something like 15 euro thereabouts, which I'm pretty sure it's worth. I've never actually seen this particular book before, so I think it is fairly uncommon. And so now we're actually done with all of the adult magazines, and I've had some time to sort of clean up my reviewing space so I can show these without having to censor too much. And now we're actually going to take a brief look at some videotapes, and these are also online finds. I want to make that very clear. And the first one I want to show, which is something I'm really happy about, is actually a Swedish rental copy of Lost Highway. And this is actually a tape I've been wanting for quite a few years. Haven't really seen a copy for sale, but then I spotted this on Facebook Marketplace actually. And this comes in a large clamshell. I wouldn't say this is a super collectible, but I don't really see it too much. And surprisingly, when I got it, I realized that this is pretty much mint condition. Doesn't really have any sort of stickers on the cover, which is nice. And yeah, generally just a really interesting find. I think I paid something like maybe 15 euro thereabouts for this, and I would say it's at least worth 20, plus you're gonna have to be paying shipping on that. So yeah, I'm definitely happy with this find. It's something I've been looking for quite a while. You can get a close-up of the label. Doesn't have a spine label, but yeah, really happy about this. And I know this isn't really on the topic or in the same theme as the rest of the stuff, but I mean, Lost Highway is a thriller. It's quite actually a just sort of erotic thriller. And in case you don't know it, Lost Highway actually has a brief cameo by Marilyn Manson. I'm guessing most people know this, but there is some sort of weirdo, I don't know, fetishy type clips there in terms of erotica. Just brief stuff, but generally I think this is a very sort of sexual thriller in some ways. I don't know why, it just feels like that to me. And great David Lynch film, really one that I enjoy. I think it's probably my all-time favorite movie from David Lynch. But yeah, so this was a pretty good and nice find from Facebook Marketplace. And now lastly, I want to show you an even weirder tape, because we're talking about weird films. David Lynch is one of those people which has sort of become a household name for like making really bizarre films. Just generally, you know, I tend to describe things as being very Lynchian. So, I mean, that's definitely saying something, and I don't think I'm the only person who tends to do that. And now I want to show you a tape from a guy who is probably even more Lynchian than Lynch himself, or at least a bit weirder, let's just say that. And that is a videotape from a guy named Richard Kern. And I gotta be honest, I don't know much about this tape, but I know enough to know that Richard Kern is a very sort of alternative art kind of guy, and he's made some really bizarre video project in the day. And this was a VHS which I spotted on Facebook Marketplace. Some guy was saying a lot of tapes, and this was one of the weird ones that was in this lot. And this is something released by a company called Death Trip Films, and apparently Radium 226.0. I have no idea. So, I mean, this just screamed weirdness to me, and you can say that it's essentially 3 movies. So we got Fingered, The Manhattan Love Suicides, and The Right Side of My Brain, all 3 shorts by Richard Kern. Then you also have some listings for the credits or the cast. So we got Lydia Lunch, Clint Lewin, Bill Rice, David Wojnowicz, yeah, Henry Rollins is in there. So yeah, it feels like this very sort of 70s, 80s type weirdo production, got music in there. Like I said, haven't really watched this, don't know much about it, but I do know that Richard Kern stuff is generally pretty collectible, and this seems to be quite a rare tape. I can't really find anything about this when I'm Googling it, and it also seems to be, this says RAF001, so assuming this is a release, the first release from a series or a label, and yeah, just checking some of the copywriting from the back, it seems like most of these films are from the 1980s. You got 86, 85, and I would assume that this VHS is also produced, you know, at least obviously prior to 1985, but, or sorry, my mistake, obviously this is released later than when the movies were produced. So the last one we got here is 1987, I think, if I've gone through everything correctly. So obviously a late 80s era tape, but like I said, Richard Kern videotapes are very uncommon, and this looks to be very sort of homemade. You can see that got the label just on here, like a very sort of darkened photo, very much a homemade label, and nothing on the spine. So yeah, would be interesting to know if anyone has more info about this. But generally, I mean, if you see stuff by Richard Kern, it's probably pretty collectible. So I'm gonna be curious about watching these short films. Don't really know much about them, but I haven't really had time to do that yet. And oh, as far as the price, I think I paid, might have overpaid, but I don't think so. This cost me roughly 35 euro. But then again, if you find the tape that seems weird and you can't even find it on Google, it's pretty safe to say it might actually be worth that money. But I don't know, I just like weird shit, and I thought it was a cool tape to get to my collection. And that's about all I got to say about this. But this is actually the last tape and the last item for this lot. And like I said, this has actually been the last carboot sale of the season. Now what I mean by that is not like it's never going to be another carboot sale, and it's quite possible that I will go to more sales this year, but this was the last time I could actually go to this particular carboot sale, because this is closed for the season. And this is actually a bit of a shame. I mean, I love this carboot sale. I go there every weekend on Saturdays, always try to bring my camera and pick stuff up. And yeah, now that's it for this summer. So it's a bit sad actually, and hopefully I will be able to find some more online stuff during the winter. Hopefully I can make some cool videos about it. And with all that said, I just want to let you know that I fucked up the ending. Whatever. Alright, thank you all for watching. Really hope you enjoyed it. And as usual, hope to see you all next time.